Welcome to Kourend, the final region on our region guides for Mastering Leagues 4. So what does Kourend have to offer then? The first one obviously is going to be the Chambers of Zeah. The Chambers of Zeah is the first raid that ever existed. There's a lot of uniques here, and every single one of those uniques surely is going to be a task, as well as there's probably going to be a very, very lofty KC task list here, somewhere probably like a 500 KC task. So you will be doing a lot of Chambers of Zeah. Second thing is there's a lot of other kind of random bossing, or what feels like bossing. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then lastly is Winterton. Winterton's a big one, especially it's like the early game Iron Man meta to go there and immediately knock out 99. And you can go immediately into Winterton and blast all the way as high as you want up to what we kind of assume is probably going to be a 25 or 50 mil XP threshold, right? Like that is totally doable. But expect there to be a lot of tasks for it, a lot of fire making, obviously just XP tasks, as well as like KC tasks, Tome of Fire tasks, that type of thing. So with that in mind, let's jump into the bosses. So obviously let's start with the Chambers of Zeah. I already kind of mentioned that you're going to be spending a lot of time here. And that's a combination of there's a lot of uniques and there's a lot of KC tasks. But something I want you to consider is we don't have the Chambers of Zeah quality of life updates out yet, which means you can't choose your layout. You still have to scout. If you can get the gear and a good setup to do challenge modes, like that is definitely an option. There will probably be tasks surrounding that. Once you have the 5x drop multiplier and you're running Chambers of Zeah non-stop, that's all you're doing, it's still almost 100-hour grind to get a Twisted Bow. And if you're coming to Chambers of Zeah, you obviously are wanting the Twisted Bow, right? Like that is the dream, is to get this item. And that's assuming you're to go dry, right? I just want to say be careful with this region and just know what you're getting yourself into. Because this is just one of the bosses. There's other bosses that have drop tables that you'll have to get items from and KC from, right? And then as we start talking about the other bosses, just note that like you're doing these in addition to Chambers of Zeah. Chambers of Zeah is the priority. Anytime you can get a team or people to scale your raid, you should be doing more chambers because there's just more points there. You also have Favours, which in order to access, you have to have the desert unlocked, but you will have Favours actually unlocked for your like a melee ability of getting the desert treasure 2 uniques, your Virtus robes, your Soul Reaper axe, right? We'll probably have tasks associated with it. I would expect all of the desert treasure 2 bosses to have some form of task associated with them, as well as like a Soul Reaper, a Virtus, the uniques, that type of thing. You have Sirachnis, good old Sriracha, really good early game boss that you can do. The cudgel is pretty good, especially if you're going melee. Like that is a good way of getting a crush weapon for Tecton, right? Is going and getting that cudgel, and that should be a pretty fast grind. It drops pretty good clues for you to knock out some of those clue tasks and whatnot. So very, very good boss to camp. You have his Spori, which drops the bottomless bucket. Pretty meme for me to throw it in bosses, but you know, these ones kind of aren't bosses, but I'll mention Lizardman Shaman are here too. You can expect getting a Dragon Warhammer to be a pretty big task. The only one I haven't mentioned is Hydra. Now, Hydra is really weird here because besides getting a Brimstone Ring, all of its uniques that it drops need another region in order for you to be able to use them. If you get a Hydra Leather and you want to turn it into Ferocious Gloves, you also have to take Fremnik in order to access the basement on Fossil Island in that little house, in order to turn those into your Ferocious Gloves, because you have to have Dragon Slayer 2 done in order to access that area. Likewise, you get a Hydra Claw to make your Dragon Hunter Lance. Not only do you need Asgarnia to get the Zami Spear, but you also have to take Kandarin in order to turn that into a Hosta to then turn it into the Lance. So that is a 3-region combo in order to just use this one unique that Hydra drops. So Hydra is a little awkward. It still has insane drops outside of the uniques, the money alks that it drops, the herbs, the potions, the all the goodies, right? It drops a lot of stuff that's very useful. The bones as well, right? Good prayer training. But those uniques are a lot of times what you're killing Hydra for. And depending on your regions, you might not even be chasing those. You might not even be able to get the task completion for wielding a Dragon Hunter Lance because you don't have exactly the right reasons. So keep that in mind. It's a very heavy PVM focused region. Again, very similar to Mauritania. So with that all in mind, I do want to go over kind of the gear and the different like gear sets and what this region has to offer. Let's start out with our spec weapons. There are two big spec weapons that you can get in this region. The first is the Dragon Warhammer from the Listerman Shaman, or defense reduction to make you do more damage to things is a very, very good thing to use. And then secondly, we have the Dragon Claws, which is one of the best melee spec weapons in the game. And then we have one other kind of special weapon, and I'm going to mention it here. And I want you to know that there's a lot of special sauce going into this weapon for this league, but we're not going to get into it in this video. And that weapon is the Din's Bulwark, the door. If you've ever dreamed of taking a door and running around and hitting people with it, the Din's Bulwark may be the weapon for you, as there is a spicy route for melee where the Din's Bulwark is actually your main hand weapon for the entire league. It is the end goal, is to hold the door. I do plan on making a video for routing different melee routes, and then obviously a mage and a range route over the next couple of days. Keep an eye out for the melee route. From a mage standpoint, you have full Ancestral, the best magic gear in the game. With that, you also get the Tome of Fire as an offhand from Winterton, also very, very strong. Offhands are also pretty rare. Ranged, you also only have weapons. It's very, very weapon dense region. And you have two. You have the Twisted Bow, which becomes, if you go the range route, becomes a 2-tick Twisted Bow, which will be actually insane. And then you have the Dragon Hunter Crossbow, which, while on the grind for a Twisted Bow, will make Ulm so much easier. And as just kind of an added bonus, you actually get the Twisted Buckler too, that you can wield with your Dragon Hunter Crossbow to make it do even more damage with more Ruby Bolt procs. So very, 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 very strong. You get the Brimstone Ring. That is something from Hydra that you are able to fully make. And then you get access to Augury and Rigor for your magic and range. Two more very, very strong offensive prayers, and the Arceus Spellbook, which gives you access to Thralls. Thralls are just free DPS everywhere, and then things like Grasp of Darkness and whatnot. So a couple extra fun utility spells within that spellbook as well that are combat related. So note that you do also get that by unlocking this region. Alright, so for skilling, we're going to jump into it like we always do and jump right into the combats. So again, this is a very PVM focused region, which means you're doing a lot of combat, and honestly in all three different styles over the course of this league. And with the multipliers and stuff, expect to get some really nice passive XP in all of your combats. Prayer wise specifically, I do want to call out, you do have dragons in the Forthos dungeon that you can kill and actually offer to that altar. You also have Hydra, which has the Hydra Bones. And like thirdly, you have access to the Arceus Spellbook. And if you have a way with like Fremenic as a combo region, get some Wrath Runes, you can actually use the offering spells on all these bones to get some bonus XP as well, which is unique to this region, but you have to have a way of getting Wrath Runes in order to do that as just kind of a bonus. Slayer-wise, I do want to mention you do have the Catacombs, which is a multi-combat area, again with combos, a region that gives you red or black chins, and or like a Venerator Bow, or with magic, taking the desert, so you have barrage spells. You can actually blast through your Slayers super, super fast, and it's very, very good XP in this area, so very, very strong Slayer region. Rune crafting. This is an interesting one, because you have the Arceus library, which you can dump into rune crafting to get your early levels if you need be. Blood and Soul rune crafting doesn't actually work that well with Last Recall, so this is actually a don't for me. I don't think doing Blood and Soul rune crafting in Kourend is actually good. I think basically every other region, including the starter regions, like I'm pretty sure if you just get Pure Essence and just do nature runes, you will get more XP an hour than you will doing Bloods. Looking at construction, also skip. There is nothing special about construction in this region, nor is there anything special about agility. Herblore, this is an interesting one, and we're actually going to mark this as a do. Now, the reason we're marking this as a do is because of the Farming Guild and the Hosidius patch. So the Hosidius patch is a disease-free patch, and then the Farming Guild also has an herb patch, an allotment patch, It also has like every single type of patch you can think of to make your secondaries: whiteberry bushes, potato cactuses, limpworts in the right. So you can help expedite and get those herb patches going to help do more herb lore. This region is really, really good for that, and likewise for farming because of that region. So those kind of go hand in hand. So we're going to mark farming as a do as well. Thieving is actually really good here as well. Now, if you have the Trickster Relic, in general, I would say thieving is now worse for you, because there's just better things that you can do for thieving with that relic in basically every region. In Kourend, you get access to artifacts, which, because you have infinite run, you don't have to worry about staminas, you can multitask. This is a great opportunity to do that while doing artifacts. So very, very strong, very, very good. It is dependent on what relics you take though, but for now I'm going to mark it as a do because the method of doing it is very strong. It just might become obsolete if you pick exactly like specific relics. Crafting is a don't for me. I don't think there's any new methods that you get in this region that aren't like exclusive here. You have charter ships and stuff, but you have those kind of everywhere, so no big deal. Same with fletching. Fletching also, you don't really get anything new or exciting here. Hunter, not yet. We don't quite have the Hunter Guild. That's coming soon, but that'll come after leagues. Mining is interesting. So you actually get the blast mine, which is actually a really, really cool method. And there'll probably be tasks associated with it. So I would say you probably want to end up mining because of the blast mine. So just something to consider. Smithing is a no. Just not worth it. Nothing really special. Fishing is good. You get anglers in this region, and anglers are a very, very strong food source. And especially with something like the banknoting relic, again, being able to just have like an infinite amount of anglers on you at any given point in time is like very strong. Cooking is also very good. If you don't have a good way of getting just resources to cook, right? You're not really doing much fish, you're just making mostly brews, that type of thing. You do have access to the mess hall, which in the base game is like 300k an hour or something, somewhere in that ballpark. So if you do that when you get to like the 16x XP, you're getting like 4 or 5 million XP an hour doing that method, and that doesn't require any resources at all. So very, very good cooking method here. And then obviously fire making and wood cutting. So fire making, you have Wintertod. We kind of touched on this at the beginning, but Wintertod is so good. There's going to be some big KC tasks. You're going to have things like make a tome of fire, or get a tome of fire, get the full pyromancer outfit. You'll be woodcutting the whole time. I want to honorable mention fletching and construction here, as I've marked them as don'ts. Why fletch? But honestly, like if you need to fletch, get the points, that type of thing to make sure you hit thresholds, fletch in that case, but it's not a priority. Don't fletch every single thing you're doing. Fix the braziers when you can, get that nice passive XP as you're doing your Wintertod, but it is definitely not a priority because there's just so many good ways of training construction and fletching outside of doing Wintertod. So this is one of those regions. Basically no quests are auto-completed, which means two things. Firstly, in order to do any of the like big questline quests in this region, you are going to need to do Favor for every single region. And Favor's rough. It is not a fun grind. It is one of my personal least favorite things in the main game. Now, it hasn't been confirmed from what I've seen, but you can probably expect that the minigame point buff that goes up when you get relic tiers, that is a passive thing you get, will probably also increase how much favor you get per action and will speed it up. So the later you take this region, the faster that favor grind will actually ultimately be. Now again, that's speculation, but I think is a pretty reasonable guess that they will make it run and work that way. And then once you get that favor, you then have to do all 5 of the quests around the area. You need to do things like Garden of Death. You need to go all the way up the chain to do Kingdom Divided, so you can use those thralls that we talked about that as a very, very good free source of damage. And so most regions have their main quest line just completely done. And if it's not completely done, it's like one quest off of completely done. This region has none of that. You have X marks the spot done, and that is it. Everything else you have to manually do and run around the giant landmass that is Kourend and actually do all of those quests. So pretty big downside here is I know a lot of people come into leagues and they don't want to quest at all. And if that's the case and you don't want to do quests, this is not the region for you. So keep that in mind. It will be a good chunk of that here. And as such, we come to the end of the final region guide, Kourend. And I just want to re-highlight a couple of things again. That this region has a lot of Chambers of Xeric that you will be doing for all of the points. The KC tasks, the unique tasks. You'll be doing just a lot of chambers, and you need to be prepared for that, and the long hours and hours and hours of chambers that you will be putting in to really get the most out of this region. From a gear standpoint, there are a ton of weapons that are offered in this region for all the different combat styles. There's something that is good here for your style that is a weapon, but there's very few pieces of gear outside of those weapons, with that caveat of ancestral, right, being your best mage gear. But besides that, there is hardly any gear at all that exists. And then from a skilling standpoint, you have Wintertodt, and Wintertodt is just as busted, if not more, in leagues than it is in the main game. So be prepared to do a lot of Wintertodt. It is definitely worth the time putting in a couple of hours here to really maximize that those XP rates that you can get here. So with all that said, I started this series actually because I had a few clanmates who have never done League, had a lot of questions, were like, you've got Dragon Cup a few times, can you help us out? And I decided, you know what, let me just make a couple of videos. And all I was expecting, honestly, was like maybe 1,000 views overall, like 9 videos. A couple subs would be cool, and you guys have been absolutely just destroying my channel with comments and likes and great discussions, tons of views, the sub count keeps growing, and it's insane, everybody. And I just can't say how much I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to just keep churning out more content for you all over the course of the league, and honestly, who knows, maybe even beyond that if this keeps pace. So this is, like I said, I just wanted to thank everybody. I'm kind of at a loss for words with just how insane this last little over a week has been now. And like I said, I can't wait for you guys to see what's to come as we wrap up these region guides and the fun videos I have planned next. So reminder to hit that subscribe button if you want to see the really swanky content that we have coming up, stuff we have cooking in the kitchen. But with that all said, really appreciate you all. UIMSampson out.